The story of the princes in the Tower is one of England's most enduring mysteries. Edward V and his brother Richard, Duke of York, disappeared in 1483, puzzling historians for centuries. Edward was 12 when his father died, and he was proclaimed king. Their uncle Richard, Duke of Gloucester, became Lord Protector and later King Richard III. The fate of the princes remains a captivating mystery, with historians piecing together clues to this day. Edward V and Richard, Duke of York, were born into the heart of English royalty. Their father was King Edward IV, a charismatic and formidable ruler from the House of York. He had fought hard to secure the throne during the tumultuous period known as the Wars of the Roses. Edward IV's victories had, for a time, brought a sense of stability to the kingdom after decades of conflict and uncertainty. The prince's mother was Elizabeth Woodville, a commoner by birth, albeit from a respectable gentry family. Her marriage to Edward IV in 1464 was a secret affair, which caused considerable controversy amongst the established nobility. As the sons of King Edward IV, the princes held a significant position. Edward the Elder was the Prince of Wales, the direct heir to the English throne. Richard, his younger brother, was created Duke of York, another prestigious title. Their existence was crucial for the security and future of the House of York, ensuring that the crown would pass smoothly to the next generation and solidify their dynasty's hold on power. Their royal blood, which entitled them to the greatest honors, ultimately placed them in the gravest peril imaginable for children of their tender years. The year 1483 found England in a state of apparent yet fragile peace. The Wars of the Roses seem to have concluded with the decisive victories of Edward IV. His reign brought a degree of order and prosperity that had been absent for many years. However, beneath the surface of this restored calm, old rivalries and resentments lingered. King Edward IV had managed to maintain control through a combination of strong leadership, astute political maneuvering, and the loyalty of key supporters. Yet his court was not without its factions. The Woodville family, relatives of Queen Elizabeth, had gained significant influence and wealth, which caused jealousy and distrust among some of the traditional nobility. These tensions were largely kept in check by the king's authority. His sudden death would inevitably unleash these underlying conflicts, creating a power vacuum. When Edward IV died unexpectedly in April 1483, he left behind a young heir, his 12-year-old son, Edward V. This was the precarious situation that England faced upon Edward IV's demise. The coming months would prove to be a severe test for the stability of the English kingdom. King Edward IV died on April 9, 1483, at the age of just 40. His death was unexpected, reportedly following a short illness. At the time of his father's death, young Edward V was at Ludlow Castle on the Welsh Marches, where he was undergoing his education as Prince of Wales. Upon learning of his brother's death, Richard, Duke of Gloucester, was in the north of England. Richard was Edward IV's youngest and, by many accounts, most loyal brother. In his will, Edward IV had named Richard as Lord Protector of the realm. The role of Lord Protector was a powerful one, but it was also fraught with potential difficulties. The Queen's family, the Woodvilles, were naturally keen to maintain their influence over the young king. Richard, Duke of Gloucester, moved south from Yorkshire with a retinue of followers. He then took charge of Edward V, assuring the young king of his loyalty, and escorted him towards London. With young Edward V now under his control, Richard, Duke of Gloucester, entered London on May 4, 1483. He presented himself as the loyal protector of his nephew. However, his actions quickly began to suggest a different agenda. Queen Elizabeth Woodville, upon hearing of her brother Earl Rivers' arrest, had sought sanctuary in Westminster Abbey with her younger son Richard, Duke of York, and her daughters. Gloucester consolidated his power swiftly. He secured key appointments for his own supporters and began to isolate those loyal to the Woodvilles. Gloucester's allies, particularly Henry Stafford, Duke of Buckingham, played a significant role in these maneuvers. A crucial turning point came on June 13, 1483, at a council meeting in the Tower of London. Gloucester accused William, Lord Hastings, of treason. Hastings was executed without trial on the same day, a shocking and brutal act that sent a clear message to any potential opponents. Shortly after Hastings' execution, the plans for Edward V's coronation were indefinitely postponed. Then a clergyman named Ralph Shaw delivered a sermon at St. Paul's Cross on June 22nd. He publicly declared that King Edward IV's marriage to Elizabeth Woodville had been invalid. Following Ralph Shaw's sermon, the claim of Edward IV's pre-contract to Lady Eleanor Butler became central to Richard, Duke of Gloucester's, bid for the throne. If Edward V and his siblings were illegitimate, they could not inherit the crown. This conveniently left Richard, Duke of Gloucester, as the rightful heir to the throne of England. On June 25, 1483, a group of lords and commons, orchestrated by the Duke of Buckingham, presented a petition to Richard at Baynard's Castle. This petition, later formalized as the Act of Parliament known as, outlined the reasons why Richard should take the crown. After a show of reluctance, Richard accepted their plea and agreed to become King of England. The very next day, June 26, 1483, Richard, Duke of Gloucester, began his reign as King Richard III. His accession was remarkably swift, occurring less than 3 months after the death of his brother, King Edward IV. Richard III's coronation took place on July 6, 1483, at Westminster Abbey. However, the fate of Edward V and his younger brother Richard, Duke of York, who had by this time also been moved to the Tower of London, remained a deeply unsettling question. After Richard, Duke of Gloucester, took custody of Edward V in May 1483, the young king was lodged in the Tower of London. Initially, this was presented as a customary residence for a monarch awaiting coronation. Edward V was seen playing in the Tower Gardens, though his movements were restricted. In June 1483, Queen Elizabeth Woodville released her younger son, Richard, Duke of York, from sanctuary. Richard joined Edward V in the Tower. Once Richard III became king, the boys were declared illegitimate. Their presence in the Tower shifted to that of royal prisoners. Reports of their sightings became less frequent. By July, they were withdrawn into the inner apartments of the Tower. They disappeared from public view altogether in late summer 1483. The Tower of London became synonymous with the sinister disappearance of these two young princes. By the autumn of 1483, whispers about the fate of Edward V and Richard, Duke of York, had intensified into widespread rumors of their murder. The most prominent theory, then and now, is that King Richard III ordered their deaths. The Tudor historian Polydore Virgil, writing under Henry VII, claimed that Richard III, fearing for his own security, instructed Sir James Tyrrell to arrange the murder of the princes. According to this account, Tyrrell, with the help of 2 accomplices, Miles Forrest and John Dighton, smothered the sleeping princes with their pillows. Their bodies were then supposedly buried secretly within the Tower. This narrative, popularized by Sir Thomas More and later by William Shakespeare, became the dominant version of events for centuries. However, other theories have been proposed over the years. Some have suggested that Henry Stafford, Duke of Buckingham, might have been responsible. Another less common theory implicates Henry Tudor, later King Henry VII, who defeated Richard III at the Battle of Bosworth in 1485. There have also been persistent, though less historically supported, theories that one or both princes survived. Most historians today, however, believe that the princes did indeed die in the Tower in 1483. The disappearance of the princes in the Tower cast a lasting shadow over King Richard III's reign. Rumors of their murder damaged his reputation and contributed to his downfall. Henry Tudor used this suspicion to rally support and eventually defeated Richard III. The fate of Edward V and Richard, Duke of York, remains one of history's great unsolved cases. Skeletons found in 1674 were consistent with the princes' ages, but modern DNA testing has been unsuccessful. The story of the princes in the tower remains a poignant symbol of a childhood stolen and a crime unresolved.